Good afternoon. For those who don't know you, will you state your name?
Janie Purnell,
And how old are you?
87.
All right. Do you remember what year or how old you were when you joined Mount Pisgah?
No, I don't, but it's been about 45 years.
Wow. Can you tell me about your earliest memories of Mount Pisgah?
Well, I came to Mount Pisgah because I left another church and I came here because it was a very friendly fellowship. And having six children, they had church school and activities for the children.
So that was the draw for your parents.
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell me about your church school experience at that time?
Oh, yes. When I think of it, when I first came to Mount Pisgah, we must have had the adult Sunday school class was about 6 people, just senior citizens.
Wow.
And when I look at it now, we have 4 adult church school classes, as I call it, church school, and classes for the children. And that's been a draw, and I think it also has been a wonderful thing for Mount Pisgah and the growth of Mount Pisgah, and not only church school, but Bible study, because when I first came, there wasn't even no Bible study. And then we had Bible study maybe for 30 minutes of a prayer meeting time. And
Interesting.
Then we finally had a full hour Bible study. Pastor Barrett came along and started teaching. And now we look at it now, we have 3 times during the week.
Right.
We have Bible study is open, to encompass a time for everybody.
Yes.
And that's, to me, added growth for the church.
Absolutely.
And since the pandemic, it seems like our children's church has dropped off, and I'm sure it will grow, but the adults are still coming. And I think that's a major asset for the church.
Yes.
Church growth, to have Bible study and to have church school. And
I
it's good
agree.
to see adults, but there's a lot of adults think church school is just for children. But it's not. Church school is for everybody, because we all need to learn.
Yes.
And need to grow.
So at the time you said that it wasn't, there was a church school, but there wasn't a Bible class.
No Bible class.
Or it was kind of roped in with the
and when
prayer
I first
meeting.
came, there was, they had children's church school. Church schools for adults was, like I said, about 5 or 6 elderly people came to church school. It wasn't like it is now. And later on, we started asking for Bible study. And so the prayer meeting time on Wednesday night was split 30 minutes for Bible study and 30 minutes for prayer meeting.
Interesting.
That's the way it started out.
Interesting.
And then it grew, Pastor Kemper brought Pastor Barrett in. And then we had more consistent Bible study, but it's not even as consistent as it is now. Because now everybody who can be involved, and then the classes we have online is still open. Everybody who wants to can be involved in the spiritual growth.
Absolutely. So speaking of involvement, how has your involvement with Mount Pisgah from your earliest time to now, how has that impacted your life?
Well, I started in church school. And I was a church school teacher, and at one time I was a chairperson over education.
Really?
And
I didn't know that.
That was before you.
Well, it was.
No.
It was literally it was.
Yeah, and the setup was a little bit different than it is now. My duties were to oversee new members training. Like I said, church school, Bible study, and I just kind of coordinated all those, whatever, and I was still teaching. And I also started the new members for children, because before, when we first started having new membership training for children, they were all dumped in with the adults.
Oh.
Okay? And so I did that for a while, and I backed out of it for a while, and then they kept saying, we'll get somebody, but they didn't get anybody, so I found myself back in that position, and that's when I wrote the book for the children's. I'm hoping they have updated it since I did my input.
Wrote the book, can you go back to that? What book?
For new membership training for the children.
You wrote that?
Yeah, I put it together using the information that the deacons and the pastor wanted, I used that, and I put in I don't want to say a book, a pamphlet, or whatever, for new membership training for children, because you can't teach children like you teach adults.
Right.
You know, and you have to make it plain and make it clear to them. And so I passed it on to Valerie and Karen Williams, and I'm sure they're still, Valerie is still doing it, but I'm hoping that she has updated it since then.
Wow.
Because anything you do, you have to update. You can't stay.
Absolutely. Yeah. We can't keep it the same. I wouldn't have known, though, that you were instrumental in. What was that experience like? Because I'm sure that was a massive undertaking.
It wasn't an experience. It was just something that just happened. One thing grew into another. It wasn't anything I planned to do.
Right.
It was just the opportunity was there, and there was a need, and I just got involved in those things.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so my next question is, can you share any stories or experiences that highlight the sense of community within Mount Pisgah?
Well, I've seen a lot of people come and go.
Sure. After being here for 40 some years, it would be hard not to.
Well, yes, and just I say the camaraderie of Mount Pisgah seems to be different than other churches that I've, you know.
Can you expand on that? What you mean?
I find people friendly.
Okay.
Other people may not see that, but I find people friendly. But you have to present yourself friendly if you want to,
Absolutely.
And
I just told somebody that one of my students that was a proverb.
And
yes.
So you have to present yourself, and people care about you. I wasn't in Sunday school this morning, and I must have had 3 people say, "We missed you in Sunday school." But I was online in Sunday school. I did the virtual. But people care about you, and when you're not here, they miss you.
Okay.
And even my pastor, when I'm not here, he'll give me a call.
Yes.
I shouldn't say that. But
is that more so now, or has that always been the community of Mount Pisgah?
I think that's always been the community.
Okay.
People are caring, family oriented, like I said, and with the children, and just always open. My thing has been the teaching and the learning, and it's been growing. I can see, so many things that we've grown and to do, and it's like the spiritual gifts.
Yes.
There was a time we didn't do spiritual gifts.
Right.
And there was a time there was a group who thought that it wasn't for today. And they were teaching Bible study, and that's what they were teaching. And Deacon Tolliver was the first one who brought of spiritual gifts to his Sunday school class, and pretty soon it expanded throughout the church. And that has been an asset. And one thing I'd like to mention too, when we go back to church school, and that is Bill Grady. I always call him Mr. Sunday School.
Tell me about him. I've heard his name mentioned often.
He is the one who kept Sunday school going and kept going and growing, and inviting men to come when we didn't have, like sometimes it's just women and everything. And a lot got men involved in church school and taught the teachers and taught them how to teach. And he was instrumental in getting me involved in church school, although I enjoyed church school. At the point I was at then with 6 kids, I was good to get here to sit to listen, and to be involved in that. So I guess that's just about, where I am, I guess I'll be here forever.
Yeah. Would you say, I heard you say that there were no spiritual gift tests at the time.
Oh.
So how did people what was the other method of people figuring out where their gifts were used within ministry?
Yeah, so there were no gifts. You more or less came where someone invited you to be a part of, and sometimes people got into the wrong ministry.
Okay.
You could tell, or something that they like to do.
Okay.
Or whether they had a relative or somebody involved. And so that was, kind of like the leadership of where they went.
Yes.
Or they didn't do anything. And so now with the spiritual gift test,
And do you believe that that's now the fact that we have a spiritual gifts test? Do you think it's a good thing? Especially in comparison to before where people didn't have that to determine.
If you don't know that you have it, you won't use it. Okay.
That's good.
And so it had to be a learning process. They had to be taught that God has given everyone
A gift.
something to do.
Yes. Because if you don't know that, then that's intimidating. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And so, that is, I'm hoping they're still using that with the new members, to try to lead them, to guide them into ministry and to open up their eyes as to what God would have them to do, because they don't see it. They don't know it. And even when you take the spiritual gift test, sometimes people say, "Oh no, not me." They think they can't do it because they're depending on self,
right,
and not depending on the leadership of the Lord to lead them into whatever ministry you have for them to do.
Absolutely.
So, and the other thing about the spiritual gift test, when Pastor Anderson came here, I forget the pastor's name in California. He came several times, and we did the. My train of thought now. We did the classes on discipleship, and so I taught the first class. Then we had 17 people in our discipleship class we taught. And I wonder now where the 17 people are. They probably, like me, just got tired and sit down. But we had 17 graduates to go through the discipleship training to be able to disciple new members. And so, it's taken a different leadership. Like I said, everything needs change. It's taken a different leadership than what it used to be, but the method and the purpose is still the same.
So you've worked here for a long time. Yeah. Obviously, you've been very active. What would you say that your gifts were?
Teaching.
Okay.
And encouragement.
Really?
And I believe that even if you take the spiritual gift test, you have a hint of just about all that there are. But they teach us the top three.
Okay.
The top three is you select, and so and it has changed over the years too.
Okay.
As I've gotten older, it has changed. So teaching and encouragement, yes.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And teaching and encouragement, encouragement never came up for me, and teaching never came up for me. Surprisingly, it was always music.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
But there again, in each individuals, so God gives it to whatever is needed in this particular church. So
and He does.
Everybody don't need to teach.
Yes. Yes.
Other things too.
You are absolutely right.
Yes.
My next question is: have there been any significant changes in Mount Pisgah's practices during your time? And I think we touched a little bit on that, like things just changing from what this is now, 3 pastors that you might have been under, or 4?
No, this is just a second.
This is just a second. Okay.
Pastor Kimball was here, and then Pastor Anderson.
What practices have changed from then to now?
I would say I have to go back to the growth of the church, period.
Okay.
The growth of the church school, growth through Bible study.
Okay.
The growth of the members themselves, and definitely since Pastor Anderson came, the growth of the men in this congregation, because there were few. We had few deacons, and a few others would come like once in a while on special days,
Okay.
Whatever. But I remember saying to Pastor Anderson one time when he first came, you seem to be doing a lot for the men. What about the women? This women.
What was his response to that?
He told me that God had given him a mandate to build up the men in this church, and he has done that.
Yeah.
He has really fulfilled that, what God has called him to do, because this church was women everywhere. I mean, everywhere you can look, women. And, it takes women and everybody to grow a congregation, but he has definitely grown men up in Mount Pisgah. And I can see that's a change. I'll never forget one Sunday, it was some situation, and he was calling all the men to the altar for prayer. And I would just look, I said, "Oh, Lord, look what you've done." I could meet all these men. When I looked around, it seemed like there were more men than women. In the sanctuary, with all the men being at the altar and the women sitting down, that was very apparent to me. And I said that's an awful change, and it's made a change in our church. And it's just not men coming, but they're men who are in ministry, who are men who are actually, serving the Lord and doing things and being active and supporting the pastor and whatever needs to be done.
Yes,
Okay?
I agree. My next question is, can you describe any challenges or obstacles that Mount Pisgah has faced over the years that has, I'm sure, I don't want to say that has made an impact, because any obstacle or challenge makes an impact, and how the church overcame them?
Well, the only thing that comes to my mind right now is when Pastor Kemper passed. We went through I don't know if you ever gone through a transition when you don't have a pastor. I'd never had before.
No, ma'am.
And to go through that, it was a challenge, but I think we came through okay, because God sent who He wanted to be pastor at Mount Pisgah, Kokomo.
Right.
But and just a transition, and for all of us, it was all new to all of us, to most of us.
Right.
It was new to us, being without a pastor, being a leader, and have to sit and wait and go through the things they had to go through to select another pastor, and we overcame. And I think we came through because of prayer, because that was one of the things that didn't fall on the wayside. We constantly had prayer. We constantly prayed.
Yes.
And God answered our prayer.